Discover your inner goddess and live up to your highest value and most abundant potential. Welcome to Grateful Goddesses, a podcast that empowers you to unleash your inner goddess and take the leap of faith to live your best life. Your guide, Carline Pulver, joins her fellow goddesses in soulful conversations about gratitude, personal growth, authentic living, and a bevy of topics affecting women today. Let's start the show with your host, Carline Pulver.
Welcome, everyone, to Grateful Goddesses. I am here on the beautiful island of Eleuthera in the Bahamas, and I'm at a dental mission. And of all places to meet these that are my next guests, these women are outstanding individuals. I am going to be talking with them about their passion, about their purpose, why they're here on this mission specifically, as well as just fun stuff, just with women, just gabbing. Okay. So it's very casual, very easy, but it's interesting when you go to different events and when you meet people, you got to jump on the chance to learn from them. And that's what I'm doing today. So I'm here with 4 amazing women that I'm going to go around and say hello to. So what I'd like to do is if you could introduce yourself, say a little bit about yourself and what you do professionally, as well as what you like to do for fun. Do you see yourself there?
I do.
Okay, go ahead.
Hi, everyone. My name's Carline Durocher. What I do professionally is I lead the legal and compliance function at a very innovative research institute in oral health innovation called the Forsyth Institute. I also lead the tech development function, helping to commercialize intellectual property that's coming out of the institute and really bringing the creativity and the science out to the community to be able to make a difference there.
For fun, what do you like to do?
Oh, for fun. So I have 2 boys. So I love spending time with my children and I love writing. So many years ago, I wanted to do a couple screenplay projects. And so finally, after many years ago means 2011, and finally, I'm at a point now where I'm starting to commit to those projects. So I'm super excited to be writing.
Awesome. Thank you. Next.
Hi, I'm Sarah Hurley. I'm joining Eleuthera from Britain. So my home is near London and I qualified as a dentist. Oh gosh, some 35 years ago. And since that time, I've had the privilege of serving with the British Army, leading small teams, providing patient-facing care in small family practices. I have deployed to Afghanistan, Iraq, and Bosnia. And then I got involved in public health, broader dental public health. And then latterly, after nearly 30 years in the Army, I transferred to government work, public work, with the National Health Service, and I have just stepped down from being the Chief Dental Officer in England.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Catherine Hayes. I'm a public health dentist, and I have a passion for bringing equity in oral health to people around the globe. That's why I'm here in Eleuthera. I currently chair the Department of Oral Health Policy and Epidemiology at Harvard School of Dental Medicine. I also have a passion for self-development, personal growth, and one of the tools that I really believe so strongly in, because it's one that can help us live more peacefully within ourselves and among groups and amongst our family. It's called the Enneagram, and that's one of the other reasons I'm here at Eleuthera. So it's wonderful to be able to combine both my passions and to be with such an amazing group of individuals.
Did I ask you what you do for fun?
So some people might say I'm a gardener and I do gardening for them. I'm not. I'm a grower. I like growing things. So I love propagating plants. I like growing things and then turning them into chutneys or turning them into something you can eat. So I like nurturing. I like developing. And then hopefully the nurturing of the plant turns into the nurturing of human beings because we produce something from what we started with.
What do you like to do for fun?
I love to teach the Enneagram for fun. I love to spend time with my family and especially my 2 granddaughters who keep me young.
Nice. And last but not least,
Hi, everyone. I am joining you literally with sand on my feet from the ocean. I went for a swim a couple of minutes ago. And so I'm joining this beautiful group of amazing women. My name is Maria Filipova. I am a growth catalyst and an impact catalyst. What does that mean? I, like Sarah, I actually grow companies. She grows plants. I love to build and grow companies. I invest in early stage companies. I take large established organizations and build new businesses and help them disrupt themselves before somebody else does. That's me in a nutshell. I've spent most of my career in healthcare. I'm new to oral health. And just like everybody else here, I'm really driven by purpose. So I think a lot about how we take some of these brilliant innovations that are coming from cutting edge research institutes and bring them closer to the people who need them the most. So scaling impact at an organizational level, but also at a personal level. How can each one of us take some of the lessons that I've learned in the decades of being doing innovation and apply them to their personal growth and scaling the things that they could do so meaningful. So,
and I see that you enjoy swimming.
I do love swimming. I love skiing as well. So I'm originally I live in Boston. So I was escaping the cold in the ocean under sun here, but I can't wait to go back and go skiing as well.
Great. I asked what you do for a living as well as what you like to do because they're intertwined, right? And sometimes people will not do for a living what they want, what their purpose is, what is their passion. And it seems to me that all four of you have been in alignment with your passion and your purpose, which is hard to do sometimes, I think, because some roadblocks get in the way. One specifically with women that I've encountered over the many interviews is imposter syndrome. Where if you don't know what that is, listeners, when you don't think you're good enough, you don't think that you have enough smarts for it, or how could you be saying that? How could you be doing that? I know I suffer from that. I'm getting over it because I'm just putting myself out there. And that's really, for me, how I've discovered to do things. You never know until you try, right? And we make mistakes and we learn from them and they're teachable moments and we get ourselves back up. And that's how I live my life. So if you don't mind, I'd love to hear how you all feel about any roadblocks that have stopped you, whether it has been, in fact, imposter syndrome or something else that has stood in your way of living the life of passion and purpose. We'll go the opposite way this time.
I get the easy question.
Yeah.
I really think that we could call it imposter syndrome, we could call it fear, we could call it disbelief. And I actually, Catherine I don't know if you could relate, but when I went to business school at Harvard, we spent a lot of time thinking about, was I the admissions mistake? And
really?
So
did they make a mistake on your entry?
That's right. Right. And,
wow.
And this is a conversation that a lot, it's now commonplace.
Yes.
A lot of us who all product of quite prestigious and we're all overachievers and we love to be able to accomplish great things in our profession. And sooner or later, we all are faced with, well, everybody else around me is so amazing. Do I belong here? Yeah. And I think fundamentally what it comes down to is this difference in perceptions of how you see yourself versus how others see you. And it's been, I personally have found it really difficult especially when you try to align your view of yourself with others' view of yourself. You're always going to be in that delta because the way others, and it frankly gives control to the other side. And so the time that I spend a lot of time thinking about what is it that is truly looking inward. Mm-hmm. Our world is designed for us to find external validation, be it your title or your compensation or education level, and being able to truly figure out who am I as a person, and how do I want to come across to others to see me. Mm-hmm. In innovation, there's this, we talk about start with the end in mind, see the end state, and then bring others along with you. Think about who you are as a person and start with that end state in mind of who do you want others to perceive you as. In fact, write down 3 attributes that you would want to describe yourself. We all do branding and marketing for products and solutions and companies. Try to do that for yourself and say, if I am the best version of myself, how do I want others to experience me?
Right. And it's kind of
And then
happen. It just kind of manifests in a sense because you're attracting those individuals.
It absolutely does.
Because you have that aura of confidence or strength.
That's right.
Yeah.
For women, especially, Amy Cuddy at Harvard did research that said that if you actually take a powerful pose,
the superhero pose or the goddess pose,
the goddess pose. And so, if we're here thinking about it, I don't want to underestimate it. I guess that the punchline here is it starts with you.
Yeah.
And try to inform others' view of yourself, your impact, your power, based on what you want them to see rather than you forming your point of view based on what others are saying.
Yes. I'm guilty of, definitely. And my listeners know that I'm on a journey along with my listeners of definitely not feeling confident enough to do things. And for me, it's just kind of about leaping before looking now, because for me, that's the way that I jump into things rather than baby steps. But I also talk about baby steps maybe being helpful for people. So let's move on. How about you?
So I believe that when we are being kind of overtaken by imposter syndrome, it's just another way the inner critic has of holding us back. Everyone has an inner critic. You can call it their super ego or inner critic, whatever it is, Freud called it the super ego. But we also have an inner guide. And the inner critic is always going to try to make us feel small, not good enough. I believe there's a study of one of the Harvard grads, was it either the business or the law school, where they interviewed the students and like 90% of them felt like, how did I get here? So
women, just women or all both? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. I think it's a myth that this is only affects women. I think it affects us more just because of our culture and our society, regardless of where you've written, you grew up in Europe. I mean, it's really, there is this, I think, way that we have to work harder and we have to prove ourselves more. However, the main thing is to really get familiar with your inner critic, understand its voice. Sometimes it's even somatic. It feels like tightening. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it's this sense of like, oh, I'm not good enough. I have no value. Recognize it and cut yourself off on it, because the inner critic will never take us in the right direction, ever. Mm-hmm. It's always going to keep us small. That's its job.
Protects us, right? Protects us against being hurt.
Right.
Who wants to feel hurt?
However, the inner guide also protects us from being hurt. Mm-hmm. And it's very connected to our heart, which is very connected to our soul. And they often say the heart is the tongue of the soul. And so that was a good one.
That was a sign. That was like, yes, good point.
And if we can learn, I think from my experience and the work that I've done with individuals is that one of the biggest steps towards inner peace is recognizing your inner critic, disengaging from it, recognizing your inner guide and following it. And this whole idea of like uncertainty, life is uncertain. None of us have a crystal ball. None of us know what's going to happen. But if we can trust that we're being led by some, I would say, benevolent guiding force, then we can trust that life will have our back. Doesn't mean that things are always going to go according to plan or things are always going to be bliss bunnies and rainbows. Yeah. Life is challenging. Mm-hmm. But if we can follow our heart, we are going to be taken in the right direction. And so the imposter syndrome is a way to feed the inner critic. Yeah. So we don't want to feed the inner critic. We want to thank it for wanting to keep us safe and say, I got this, and follow the inner.
Yes, it's hard to do, but when you do it, it feels so freeing. I have moments when I am able to do it and it just feels so freeing. In fact, when I came here, I knew about the 4 of you and I said to my husband, wow, I want to interview these women. And I kept seeing you, it's been a couple of days now. I just met you the other day and I said, oh, another one. Oh my gosh, how am I going to do this? I was scared I met you all. And then this morning I sat down for breakfast and we're all having our breakfast. I'm like, we're human. I'm human. They're human. They're ordering coffee like me. Like I say, you're on this high pedestal for me. And I'm nervous. I'll be completely honest, because I don't feel at the same level of education and, all that. And
I'm sorry, I had to drop the H bomb too early. This is that what the Harvard school.
No, it's fine. I went to York University. I have a B. I have a B.Ed. I have these credentials. But the way I look at it too is your own personal life. You are an expert in your own personal life experience.
That's exactly.
So I've had cancer. I've had a stroke. I'm an expert in that for me, and I want to help individuals out there who might be facing those challenges. But also just, not feeling shy about, doesn't matter. Of course, it's great to have all those credentials, and that definitely allows you to be more credible in our world, but also just having the courage to just speak to people. We're all human and learn from each other. So we're going to move on. Go ahead.
There's a couple of phrases you've used there. We talked about imposter syndrome. We talked about qualifications. I think the first thing is that, and this chimes in with this, we were talking about synergy, social synergy yesterday, and we talked about it being divine grace and human endeavor. And I think that chiming in with your guide to find yourself in somewhere, forget the imposter syndrome, because we all tend to underestimate ourselves and overestimate everyone else. And the secret is, I'm going to let you in on the secret here. When they're overestimating, they're bluffing.
Yeah.
They're bluffing. So don't let yourself be taken in by their bluff. I love to see people's little signature blocks at the end of their emails. But I always get really suspicious when I see something go down for about 13 lines. Because my real question then is, well, if you spent all that time getting this qualification,
yeah, she's checking hers.
Have you actually put it into practice? By all means. I mean, I've got a national cycling proficiency badge from the age of 11, but I don't put that credential on my signature. But I can ride a bike.
I won a bubble gum competition. I blew like 11 bubbles within each other. So hey, you didn't know that about me.
So letters after a name don't impress me. Letters before a name don't impress me either.
Right.
What impresses me is someone's lived experience. Mm-hmm. I love sitting down and talking to someone. So we're all human. We're all fallible. We're all incomplete. Let no one tell you out there that they are complete. The only time you become complete is when you've got your allies around you whose skills and talents make up for your deficiencies. And you become a synergy. You become bigger. The whole is bigger than the individual parts. And for me, in all the things I've been really privileged to be part of, in all the teams where I have been exceptionally well led by another individual, I've learned, I've grown. That's my personal experience. I'm sitting here today. I'm working with some awesome clinicians in the clinic. I'm working with some awesome women here who we've connected both socially and emotionally this morning, as we have always realized that our lived experience has also given us scars. But those scars are really beautiful reminders. And we said, we're not survivors, we're victors. We have overcome adversity. We've shown resilience, and your personal story, your resilience, and your ability now to connect with so many other women to bring those realities to life, to me, is more important than a set of qualifications.
Although I did score on the Enneagram. We all did an Enneagram, which we'll talk about in a minute. I did score 2, which is the people pleaser. Oh, interesting, right? But we can talk about some positivities for that. The gifts. There's always a gift. There's always a gift. Thank you. We're going to move on. Go ahead.
Sure. So I love listening to everyone, right? Because a lot of ideas come to mind. Right? So in terms of imposter syndrome, we've all suffered from it. I remember sorry, my necklace just fell off.
Wow. That's okay.
I remember so I'm an attorney by training. And when I first started practicing in law firm environments, just like you, I would look around and think, holy hell, like, how did I end up here? And I hope they're not going to figure out that I shouldn't be here, right? Mm-hmm. But what I realize is the critic, Catherine, that you mentioned is a signal jammer, okay? So for me, once I was able to kind of accept my skill set and understand that in life, I'm a student. So in work, I'm a student. And whether you're paid or unpaid, you're there to learn, right? And the critic, by silencing the critic, the signals were no longer jammed. And so then I could start to see the allies. I can start to see my skill set and what I bring to a scenario. And the more you can appreciate what it is you're bringing to a scenario or to work or to life, whatever it is, the more authentic you show up because you feel confident. I think people out there, when they're interacting with someone who's kind of constrained by the critic, they can tell that you're afraid, right? And it's, for me anyway, it's hard to be presenting myself in an authentic way if I'm afraid or if I feel like I need to hide because I don't know if someone will discover me there. So I think the best thing that has ever happened to me is, I remember my husband telling me, he said, remember every day, because I was freaking out at work, right? I had little kids. I was an associate in law firm environment doing mergers and acquisitions, right? And super long hours. I started spending more time in the office than I was at work. And I remember my youngest one, he must have been 4, I think, 3.5, 4. And he looked at me and he said, Mommy, where do you sleep? Oh. He said, do you sleep on the desk? Because I used to bring them into the office to please myself, right? To feel like, oh, you know what? At least I'm bringing them in and they could see where Mommy's space is. And he's like, are you sleeping under the desk? Like, what's happening here? Right? So I was having a real hard time with it. And my husband said, just remember, they're paying you to train you, right? So we can try to figure out, you know, how to make it more balanced, even though I don't like the word balance.
We like blend,
right? We like blend so that the kids can feel like they're seeing you more and you're feeling more satisfied. But if you change the mindset in terms of you're there to learn and you're getting paid to learn, you're being trained, at some point, the accumulation of the training, you're going to be able to bring a lot to the table and you're going to feel good about it. Right? The second thing I learned was stride. Okay, so in this moment of law firm life, I was living in an apartment place in Kendall Square, a little loft kind of place, and I was doing laundry at like 2:30 a.m. or 3 a.m. Right? So I walk in there. I started the laundry machines, and a professor from Harvard's Divinity School walked in as well, Miss Nandeka. God bless her. And she walked in and she said, Carline, what are you doing here? And I looked at her and I said, I don't know. I mean, I can't figure out balance. Like, I hardly see my kids. But when I'm home, I'm also doing a lot, right? Even though JR, my husband, is helping a tremendous amount. And I have to do laundry because, you know, I have to get to work in the morning. And I haven't found balance. And so she said, sit down. Let's take a deep breath. And I don't want you to think about balance, right? Because balance, no one achieves balance. And balance is over a lifetime, right? And she said, I want you to think about stride. So every day you wake up, I want you to set 3 goals for yourself. One that's personal, one that's work related, and one that's, you know, maybe family related. What are the 3 important things that you want to achieve today? And if you hit all 3 of them, congratulations, you've hit stride for that day. And if you don't, it's okay. You'll hit stride the next day. But you have to forgive yourself. You can't be shooting for this elusive balance that doesn't really exist.
Give yourself some grace.
Exactly.
Give yourself grace. I'm hearing a lot of this energy. I just want to bottle it up and take it home with me. I want you all to just listen to what these amazing women, these trailblazers in oral health, and we have an amazing coach. I mean, it's just so enriching. And I hope that you're listening and taking in as much as you can. I heard a lot of suggestions about grace, about listening to your inner guide, releasing your inner critic. I'm curious, how do we release our inner critic? Because it's easy to say, but hard to do, especially for someone who ruminates a lot. So what are some tips on doing that?
Great question. There's lots of different ways to do it, and it's important to find the one that works for you. So for some of us, the inner critic is loud in terms of making us feel small. And so when we start to feel small, take a breath and say, oh, that's my inner critic. And you can either like just really say, stop, like just to make a real abrupt, change.
Like you would to a child, like,
yes,
it's like, stop.
Or
messing around.
I've told people like in Boston, we have a subway system called the T, which is kind of a disaster, but we'll leave that for another day.
Yeah.
And I remember telling this one woman, young woman who was going for an interview, and she was very anxious. And I said, tell your inner critic to ride the T while you go in for your interview and leave that inner critic. Like you have to intentionally disengage. You can't just say, oh, I'm going to disengage. No, like you go take a swim in the ocean. I'm having a nice conversation with you. Or you go for a hike.
To really visualize.
You have to really
personalize it and visualize it. Yeah.
But the first step is recognizing your inner critic's voice.
Yes.
That's the first step. And sometimes inner critics are they're very
subtle,
insidious.
Oh,
resistant. The more self-development we have, the more they get developed and sophisticated. So the inner critic, bad news, it never goes away completely. It always comes back, but we get more refined in our ability to recognize it and dismiss it.
I have a different way of.
I'd love to hear.
A different way of dealing with my inner critic. And actually, over the years, I did what Catherine was describing, where I was very good at being focused and almost compartmentalizing, right? Mm-hmm. I am driven. I'm going to go after this result in school, at work. I have no time. I was too busy achieving and going up the milestones or whatever I needed to even listen to my inner critic. Over time, I realized, though, that was my inner critic is in fact a part of me. Mm-hmm. And there's something in me that is prompting that voice, that inner critic to show up. Just like you, we all have personal experiences. I was diagnosed with a giant kidney tumor, 6-pound kidney tumor when I was a couple of years ago. And it was a verdict more than a diagnosis.
Yes.
And what helped me go from a victim to a victor was my ability to switch my mindset and start asking questions from a place of curiosity rather than a place of fear. Mm-hmm. Because curiosity is the best antidote to depression and fear. And so when I now hear my inner critic, I physically pause, and try to ask questions. Oh, interesting you say that. I have a conversation with my inner critic. What makes you say that? Right? If, for example, my inner critic says, oh, you're not good enough. Why are you positioning yourself for that promotion? Or this person is so cool. Why would they even want to talk to you? Right? So then I would literally pause and say, what makes you say that? Mm-hmm. Right? I have interesting things to say. I'm thoughtful. I care about people. I genuinely, and I'm not doing this for my own benefit or self-service. I'm doing it because I believe in it. So I would have a conversation with my inner critic, because sometimes they realize that the things that the inner critic is bringing up to us are contrasting experiences that are allowing us to truly find our authentic self and self-worth in the most humble way. So get to know your inner critic, is what I'm saying, and be curious about them too, in addition to getting them to write in the T. Yes.
Yeah, but the first thing is to get to know them.
Yes.
It is.
Yeah. So I'm going to take it from the inner critic, which is sometimes can be a negative, to a technique I use, which is at the end of each day, I look back and reflect, and then I go, okay, at what point today did I really feel like the real me? Because we know that we put on different personas at different parts of the day. We put on our virtual makeup as well as our real makeup. We adopt our stance, and we know that actually standing like this, as it's giving that emulation of power. But actually, there are times during the day. So I reflect back. So when was I today? When I had the really authentic me? When was I really me? And that is a really treasured moment. Mm-hmm. And I hold on to that and say, okay, so how do I expand that and amplify that tomorrow? How can I bring that into other areas?
Do you find a pattern?
So I do. It's interesting that I know that there are certain times of the day when I am better at being the real me. Yeah. And so what I've got into the point is, if I'm scheduling a particular meeting that might be fractious, where I might be meeting individuals that I might not necessarily automatically have empathy with, I'm trying to use that authentic point of the day. And I do try and schedule my meetings around. So my difficult meetings are now scheduled for when I know I'm going to be as close to the real me that I don't have to then create. I don't have to even think about being an imposter. Mm-hmm. And that's worked quite usefully because I know I'm strong going into that meeting because I know I've got everything aligned to be the real me. I know that I can be authentic and I can know that I can articulate my thoughts, my passion, my projects with the voice that really is going to empower their ability to share my vision. Because often we'll go into it and someone's come into a meeting and trying to persuade or argue. Someone says, I've got to argue my position. You're never going to win. You might be able to persuade, but if you can influence, but how do you empower someone to see your vision? You do that by being the real you. So at the end of each day, have a little think. It might have been a moment with your children. It might have actually been a moment when you were picking up your Starbucks, which you've been waiting in line for, and you looked up and you realized that the person giving you your Starbucks was actually having a worse day than you were. And you thank them for the Starbucks and they smile at you and you make two people happy. And you walk away and that's the real you, and then channel that. So it can be a small moment, but think about those. We spend a lot of time as women thinking and caring about everybody else. I'm going to give you permission to be selfish.
Yeah, that's right. Can I add to that too?
Please.
So I wanted to add a couple things to that. I love this, by the way. This is so awesome. Okay. So in terms of the, what you said about wanting to interview the women here and here we are, you manifested it, right?
I guess I did.
You did. So it's like the law of attraction. You put something out there.
Yeah.
And whatever you put out, the universe meets you where you are. Yeah. Right. So you put out positive feelings or positive thoughts, the universe will meet your positive thoughts. If you're projecting negative thoughts.
But I was scared to do it. But after, my point was, sorry for interrupting, but after sitting with you for breakfast, it's okay. After sitting with you for breakfast, I think I got to know you all a little more on a personal level. So it allowed me to have the courage to then say, oh, can I interview you all? Because I realized like we're all humans and we all share these common feelings and let's help other women. And I thought, wow, what a great opportunity. These are women that all have found their passion, their purpose, and how they can help others and help me in the process. Okay, go on. Sorry for that.
What if I told you that your thought, kind of your wanting to do this podcast here with us, brought us together? Like, what are the chances that all four of us would be available on a day where we're spending 12 hours a day at the clinic, right?
Yeah.
I'm sick, which is why I kind of stayed behind because I'm having like some issues that I'm taking medicine for. But what are the chances, right? So I think for me, one thing that has been extremely powerful, especially in the last 2 years, I've been practicing it, is really understanding the law of intention and understanding the universe. So a lot of times we can manifest the reality that we want to manifest, right? By asking for it, but also recognizing the doubt. I love the conversation with yourself. When I'm upset, I talk to myself. Literally, I'm sitting there having a whole conversation. Yeah. Because to be able to bring in the good, you have to see what the self-doubt is or hear that critic's voice.
Yes.
And you have to integrate it or understand it before you can say, all right, I'm going into this meeting. I hear it, but shelving it, it's like, let's put it in a bottle and we'll deal with you a little bit later. That's the compartmentalizing, whatever. Yeah. But shelving it is important in certain moments, but you have to deal with it. Right?
Just don't spend the whole day talking about it. To your inner critic.
Exactly. Exactly.
Go ahead.
One last exactly that. So it's good to worry and reflect. Yeah. You just don't waste time worrying. Exactly. So you worry constructively, you reflect constructively, you listen to your inner critic constructively, but don't waste time because sometimes we do spend a lot of time worrying when we cannot actually change an outcome, but we can change ourselves.
Well, yeah, one of my guests, Ellen Levy-Schwartz, whose son passed away, and he had some challenges and whatnot, she said that she gives herself an hour a day to grieve. She goes into her room, she cries. And when the hour is up, and sometimes it changes, sometimes it's 5 minutes, 10 minutes, depending on her schedule, but she allows herself every single day that time to just let it all out. And then she continues with her day. And that's, I think, was a really good lesson for me too, because sometimes I can just keep it going. And then my day at the end of the day, and I'm like, I cried all day today. What accomplish? Let's like try and narrow it down. All right. So we're about to end. And what I'd like to hear is either and or what's your advice for some of the listeners that may be feeling fear in their lives, maybe feeling there's so many challenges, they just can't get up out of bed. I've heard from some individuals out there who listen to the show and they're really inspired and empowered by it, but there's something missing, that they just want to know what is that secret sauce, to get them going. And or what is your vision for yourselves for the future with what's going on in your lives? I'd love to hear. Go ahead. Battery is low, so we'll.
Okay. I love that you start me with all the easy questions. I truly believe that, building on just the conversation we had, my mindset changed when I started believing that people are well-intentioned. And that helped me pair up curiosity with empathy. Because sometimes we feel like we've been wronged and things are unfair and life is unfair and this person did this and this other person passed me up for promotion or dismissed me at a meeting, whatever that is. And try not to take that as a function of their character or their universe being against you. Give others grace. It's very, very hard. And that really unlocks my mindset. I know myself very well. When I think from a position I've been wronged, I'm a victim. The thought process and the outcome of my thought process is very, very different than when I think from a place of alignment and present and being authentic to who I am. So the first ask, I guess, is get in a place where you're aligned with who you are and present, and then act before you start acting and figuring out next steps. Because fear means that you're on the precipice of greatness. You just need to get through it.
Wow. Very powerful. Okay, you can all jump in.
Okay, so one thing I would say is be kind to yourself. Really be kind to yourself. And there's a tool that pops into my mind. So I'm going to follow my intuition here. There's something that we often talk about in coaching with neuroscience, and it's the 7 levels of consciousness. And the lowest level is hopelessness, really feeling stuck that things are not going to ever get better. And then you move to anger and fear, and then you move to frustration. But frustration is you're starting to at least engage a little bit more. And then this is the dividing line. We call under below the line and above the line, courage. So having the courage to say, okay, I have to do something different if I want to change my situation. Beyond, and so now with courage and above, we talk about above the line thinking and above the line mindset, and we move into engagement and synchronicity. So once you have the courage to say, okay, I'm going to trust that something good is out there for me. I don't want to stay in this hopeless place. And by trusting and beginning to engage in the world, things do fall into place. Ask and you shall receive. Those kinds of things. That kind of mindset is going to help us to encounter experiences that are really going to help us to grow. And with no judgment of ourselves, but try to come from that place of hopelessness to a place of courage and trust that things will be good. And they will.
My 93-year-old father, who's been through a lot in his life, a lot of challenges, his best advice every day is like, everything's going to work out. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining me here in the beautiful Eleuthera. I hope that listeners, if they would like to reach any one of you, how can they do that? Can you give us your info, please?
You can reach me at filipova.health. This is my website where you could find about what I write about, what I do.
And I'll have it written down too. Great.
So Catherine Hayes 40 at Comcast.net. And my book is on Amazon. Everything's going to be okay. And that comes from it's an experience I had as a child. And that's a philosophy that I bring into the world. So everything is going to be good.
Unleashed your inner goddess yet? Thanks for joining us today on Grateful Goddesses. We invite you to visit our website, www.gratefulgoddesses.com, to access today's show notes as well as other helpful resources. Don't forget to leave a review. Until next time, Stay strong and empowered to be a grateful goddess.